Whoa! Hey everybody, Dallas Smith here. So excited to be back at Oh Boy Studios recording some episodes of Res Dog Walkers. And it would be silly for me not to take the opportunity to just chime in a little bit on the upcoming British Columbia election. The writ's going to be dropping in the next few days for October 19th's election, and we've really seen BC politics turn over on its head over the last couple months and weeks. Specifically, we've seen the implosion of the BC United Party. I don't know, once they lost a key candidate in 2017, the party seemed to go downhill. That might just be my own personal observations, but I think it's really important for our listeners out there to understand the role First Nations communities play and how it can't get caught up in the rhetoric of BC elections. I'm watching the Conservative Party of BC fearmonger around First Nations rights and title, which affects self-determination, which really at the end of the day affect the economy. I watch the New Democratic Party continue to try win social justice issues, but don't have a roadmap to get us there that's going to keep the other parties happy. I've watched the Green Party sort of play in between and help try bridge some gaps. But where those gaps get bridged is by First Nations communities developing collaborative relationships. I think it's so important to see past the rhetoric of some of these issues and really start to look at who you're electing into office. And I know that might be naive to say from a political perspective because it's a party system, but I think we really need to look at the people who represent the areas that we live in, the areas that we work in, the areas that we depend upon, and see how they approach some of these bigger ticket items. I know the frustration as a First Nations leader of having reconciliation caught up as a political football. Some people want to do it for us. Some people want to limit how it's done because they're afraid it's going to impact them on a daily basis. I think we've seen over the years, specifically in the coast of British Columbia, that if we can collaborate together, we can find solutions that go far beyond the political rhetoric that's in front of us today and is only going to get worse over the next 5 weeks as we go into Election Day on October 19th, which is ironically my 50th birthday. So when I turn 50 and one day, we're going to have a new premier in British Columbia. Or at least we're going to have a premier with a new mandate in British Columbia. And regardless of all the back and forth that's going to go on, that premier is going to have to sit down with stakeholder communities, with resource sector, with the environment sector, but more importantly with First Nations communities who have started a journey with the province of British Columbia for the last 25 years, maybe even longer in some places. I think about the Nisga'a Treaty, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's so important to keep focus on First Nations communities develop relationships with the Crown. We don't develop relationships with the BC United Party. We don't develop relationships with the BC Conservative Party. We don't develop relationships with the New Democratic Party. We build upon those relationships with personalities in each of those parties and each of these First Nations communities. But the statutory agreements that we negotiate are with the Crown. They're with the province of British Columbia. And that's something that really has to remain a focus going into this election. So I want everybody to do their research, and more importantly, I want everybody to vote. And more importantly than that is tune in to this season of Res Dog Walkers. Gaelic Asla.